Welcome to Deep Dive with Alpha. What if the life you're living isn't being created by what's happening around you, but by the patterns you've been carrying within you? Every relationship, every decision, every breakthrough, or every setback begins long before it appears in your world. Here, we bridge ancient wisdom with neuroscience and psychology, not to give you more information, but to help you see yourself differently. Because when your identity changes, your reality follows. Let's dive deep.
I was thinking the other day about just the sheer bone deep exhaustion of the modern self-improvement treadmill.
Oh, man. Yeah, it is heavy.
Right. And I mean, if you are listening to this right now, I am willing to bet you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Oh, for sure.
You wake up before the sun, you listen to a deep dive about, optimizing your morning routine, you drink the hyper-specific green juice,
Right.
and you read the mandatory 10 pages of the latest leadership book.
The hustle never stops.
Exactly. And you try to completely crush it at work. You try to be the endlessly patient parent, the incredibly attentive partner.
It is exhausting just listing it all out, honestly.
It really is. And then at the end of the day, you collapse into bed.
Right.
You are staring up at the dark ceiling, and this familiar thought just creeps in.
Yeah.
I am still not enough.
Wow. Yeah, that is the exact thought.
It is as if we are all running this grueling, never-ending marathon where the finish line somehow just keeps moving an inch further away with every single step we take.
Yeah, you never arrive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But what truly fascinates me, and what we are going to dissect today, is the underlying assumption of that entire treadmill.
The foundation of it.
Right. It is built entirely on a feeling of lack.
Yeah.
It is this deeply ingrained idea that our default baseline state is somehow broken.
Or deficient. Yeah.
Yeah, deficient. And we have to hustle endlessly just to patch up the holes.
That is a phenomenal way to frame it because you are identifying the invisible architecture of so much of our modern anxiety.
The invisible architecture. I like that.
Yeah, it is a fundamental premise of deficiency. We operate from this baseline assumption that we start at zero.
Or even worse than zero.
Exactly. For many people who have experienced trauma or just significant failure, we feel like we are starting in the negative.
Right, like we are in debt from day one.
Right. And from that starting point, our value becomes this ongoing equation that we have to constantly solve.
Through what? Like our achievements.
Yes. Through our actions, our achievements, our roles, our daily productivity.
Always proving something.
Exactly. It is a completely exhausting way to live because, as you pointed out, the math never quite works out in our favor.
Never.
There is always someone doing more, earning more, or just seeming more put together.
Oh, absolutely. Especially on social media.
Oh, right. So if your baseline is lack, no amount of external addition will ever make you feel whole.
Okay, so let's unpack this.
Oh.
Because what if that starting line is completely fundamentally wrong?
I mean, that is the real question.
What if the starting line for your personal growth, for your career trajectory, for your relationships, isn't a state of lack at all,
Yeah.
but rather a state of inherent, undeniable goodness?
That changes everything.
It really does. So today, we are hosting a deep dive conversation based on the teachings and insights of Coach Alpha, Alpha Mishi.
A brilliant thinker.
Incredible. And the presentation we are looking at today is called Remembering the Original Goodness.
Yes.
Now, I want to set the stage carefully here because this was originally delivered as a Father's Day message.
Right, that is the context.
But Coach Alpha is very explicit right out of the gate. He states that while he is speaking directly to fathers, men who have historically carried immense societal responsibilities and fought incredibly quiet internal battles, the core theme here is identity.
And identity applies to everyone.
Absolutely everyone. In fact, he makes a specific, really beautiful point to acknowledge mothers who have had to carry both roles.
The dual burden.
Right. The mothers who became fathers and mothers, standing in the gap and bearing the weight of dual expectations.
It is such an important acknowledgement.
So whether you are a father, a mother, someone navigating the brutal ladder of your career, or just a human being trying to figure out who you actually are in this incredibly chaotic world, the mission of this deep dive is to equip you with a new map.
Exactly. And what makes Coach Alpha's insights so compelling and why it merits such a thorough examination today is how seamlessly he functions as a bridge.
A bridge between what?
Between ancient spiritual wisdom and modern science. We are going to be exploring how ancient scriptural concepts intersect directly with modern neuroscience.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, and behavioral psychology. We are going to unpack the biological mechanics of how our cultural conditioning literally rewires the neural pathways in our brains.
So it is not just philosophy, it is biology.
Exactly. We will explore the tragic irony of why outward success so often feels completely hollow on the inside.
Oh, I think a lot of people are going to relate to that.
For sure. And most importantly, we are going to walk through a highly practical mental exercise.
Good, because we need application.
Right. A practical tool to help you reclaim your true identity. This is not just theoretical. It is an applied science of the mind. By the end of this conversation, you will have practical tools you can immediately apply in your daily life.
I absolutely love that distinction. And honestly, for anyone listening who might get a little apprehensive when we mention ancient scriptural concepts or spiritual wisdom, I want to assure you right now.
Right, no need to worry.
Yeah, we are not here to give a religious lecture. We are looking at this material as a profound psychological and philosophical toolkit.
Perfectly said.
It is about human nature at its core. So let's jump right into the deep end. Coach Alpha begins by taking us all the way back to the very beginning. He references the Genesis creation story, but he focuses on one incredibly specific, and I would argue incredibly overlooked detail.
Which is?
He points out that when God created, he looked at what he had made and called it good.
Right.
Not perfect, not finished, not highly productive, just, good.
It is a profound detail when you isolate it from the rest of the text.
Yeah.
And what Coach Alpha emphasizes here, what we really need to anchor this entire conversation on, is the specific timeline of this declaration of goodness.
This timeline.
Yes, this is crucial.
Right.
This declaration happened before anything else occurred.
Oh, wow, okay.
It existed before any titles were assigned. It existed before any accomplishments were achieved.
Before you got the degree or the brochure.
Exactly. Before any societal responsibilities were handed out. It was there before any expectations were set, before any mistakes were made.
Before we messed up.
Right. Before any victories were celebrated, and long before any devastating losses were endured.
So it is unconditional.
Completely unconditional. The goodness was the absolute baseline. It was not something that had to be earned through sweat, and it was not something that had to be perfected through relentless effort. It simply was.
It is the factory setting.
A factory setting, yes.
Think about it like this. Imagine you go out and buy a classic vintage car.
Okay.
Let's say it is a pristine 1967 Ford Mustang.
A beautiful car.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
You bring this gorgeous piece of machinery home, and instead of appreciating what it is, you immediately start obsessing over it with a modern lens.
Like trying to fix what isn't broken.
Exactly. You think, I need to rip out the dashboard and upgrade the stereo to a modern Bluetooth touchscreen system.
Oh, no.
I need to take off these classic wheels and put on these flashy, oversized modern rims.
Ruining it.
Right. I need to drastically tint the windows, and you know what? I should bolt a huge spoiler onto the back.
That sounds terrible.
It is. You spend all this time, money, and anxiety trying to improve the car, completely ignoring the fact that to a true collector, the immense, incalculable value of that car lies entirely in its original untouched factory condition.
Wow. Yes.
The original goodness. Are we doing that to ourselves?
That is the question, isn't it?
Are we spending our entire lives frantically bolting on aftermarket parts to our identities, trying to become what we already were from the moment we rolled off the line?
That is a brilliant analogy, and it strikes at the exact heart of the psychological trap Coach Alpha is outlining.
How so?
Well, when you alter that vintage car with those aftermarket parts, you are not actually increasing its true value.
Right.
You are covering up its inherent worth under layers of modern artificial expectations. You are obscuring the original design.
So we are basically obscuring ourselves.
Exactly. We do the exact same thing with our identities. We pile on advanced degrees, impressive job titles, higher salary brackets.
Meticulously curated social media personas.
Oh, especially those. And relentless productivity metrics under the false assumption that these are the things that synthesize our value.
We think they make us worthy.
Right. And what is so fascinating and frankly a bit confronting is that Coach Alpha teaches that the pursuit of self-worth is itself often the trap.
Wait, the pursuit of self-worth is the trap?
Yes. Because the very fact that you are engaged in a frantic pursuit of self-worth implies to your own brain that your self-worth is currently absent.
Oh, wow. That is a massive paradigm shift.
It is.
Which brings up a huge probing question for you listening right now.
Yeah.
I want you to genuinely reflect on how much of your daily anxiety, Like, the tightness in your chest before a meeting,
Yeah.
the stress of packing your kids' lunches, the dread of checking your bank account.
Yeah.
How much of that comes directly from trying to prove that you are good enough to exist in your current roles?
It is a heavy question to sit with.
It really is.
Yeah.
Think about your job, your primary relationship, your parenting. Are you operating from a foundational place of, I am inherently good, I am whole, and today I get to express that goodness in my work?
That is the healthy state.
Right. Or are you operating from a place of deficit, thinking, I desperately need to nail this presentation, or I need to perfectly manage my kid's public tantrum so that I can earn my goodness badge for the day and justify my existence?
And we really have to look at the psychological mechanics of operating from that latter mindset.
The deficit mindset.
Yes. If your foundational operating system is the need to constantly earn your goodness, you are biologically setting yourself up for a state of chronic, unresolvable stress.
Biologically.
Yes. Why?
But
Because the moment you inevitably fail, the moment the presentation flocks or the client walks away, or you lose your temper with your child after a long day, your entire foundation crumbles.
because your goodness was tied to the performance.
Exactly. If your core goodness is conditionally tied to your performance and your performance falters, you do not just experience the healthy realization that you made a mistake.
What do you experience instead?
You experience the devastating existential dread that you are a mistake.
Oof.
There is a massive psychological difference between I failed and I am a failure.
Yeah, that is huge.
The former allows for growth. The latter is a death sentence to your original goodness.
Wow. The difference between I failed and I am a failure. That hits hard. So if we accept this premise, if we are fundamentally good from the start, if that is our true factory setting,
Right.
how do we lose sight of it so completely? Because let's be honest, we aren't born stressed out about our 401k or agonizing over whether we are enough.
No, we definitely aren't.
A toddler doesn't wake up feeling deficient.
Sure.
So how does this happen? This brings us to a fascinating part of Coach Elsa's presentation where he calls out societal messaging.
Yes.
And specifically the hidden, deeply insidious traps embedded in our everyday language.
This is where he shifts the focus from the internal theology or philosophy to the external cultural environment.
Okay, let's get into it.
And he brings up a very specific cultural phrase that is incredibly pervasive. While it is heavily directed at men, its underlying psychological mechanics apply to absolutely everyone.
What is the phrase?
He points out the toxic nature of phrases like, be a man, acts like a man, or the ever-popular, man up.
Oh, man up. We hear it literally everywhere.
Everywhere.
It is shouted on sports fields to 7-year-olds. It is implied in high-stakes boardrooms. It is the punchline in movies. It is thrown around in casual conversation. It is totally ubiquitous.
It is completely ubiquitous. And Coach Alpha does something vital here. He analyzes the deep subtext of these phrases.
Okay.
Now, he is fair. He acknowledges they are often said with good intentions.
Sure, like a coach trying to motivate a player.
Right. A coach or a parent yelling, man up, is usually trying to encourage resilience, toughness, or responsibility in the face of adversity.
Which are good things.
They are. But we have to look past the intention and examine what that language implicitly communicates to the human psyche.
Okay, what does it communicate?
When someone looks at you in a moment of vulnerability, struggle, or fear and says, act like a man, the hidden, unavoidable message is that who you are right now, in this raw state, is fundamentally insufficient.
Wow.
It suggests that your worth, your strength, or your valid identity is something that is currently missing and must be violently added.
Violently added. That is a strong phrase.
It dictates that you have to step outside of your current reality and adopt an identity that you apparently do not possess.
It is treating identity as an external coat of armor you have to go find and put on,
Yes.
rather than an internal reality you already possess and just need to tap into.
Exactly.
And Coach Alpha notes that these messages aren't just spoken directly to us in moments of crisis.
No, it is much more subtle than that.
We absorb them by constant cultural osmosis. We inhale them from the media we consume, from the educational systems we are put through,
From observing the power dynamics in relationships.
and from the quiet disappointments of life. It is a slow, relentless drip of insufficiency.
That is exactly what it is.
But I want to step in and play devil's advocate for a second here, because I can hear some people listening and pushing back on this.
Sure, let's hear it.
They might be thinking, wait a minute, isn't manning up or telling someone to step up just a necessary tool for teaching responsibility?
Right, that is a common defense.
Don't we as a society need to teach people to do the hard things, to endure pain, to push through when they don't want to. Where's the line between taking healthy, mature responsibility and adopting a toxic identity of insufficiency?
That is the absolute crucial distinction, and I'm glad you are pushing back on it because it is a common area of confusion.
So what does Coach Alpha teach about that line?
Well, this debate really hinges on the fundamental difference between doing and being.
Doing and being. Let's break that down.
Let's do it. Taking responsibility is an action. It is a behavior. It is situated in the realm of doing. You can look at a difficult, painful situation and say to yourself, I need to take responsibility for this outcome. I need to apologize. I need to work harder to fix this error, or I need to lead this team through a devastating crisis, even though I am terrified.
Right. That is healthy.
That is healthy, mature adaptation. But manning up as a cultural directive operates entirely differently. It attacks the core realm of being.
Because it targets identity.
Yes. It says you must perform this specific tough action in order to validate your existence as a man or as a strong, worthy person.
Oh, I see.
When you operate under man up, the action becomes the literal price you must pay to rent your identity, rather than an authentic expression of the strong identity you already possess.
Oh, that makes so much sense. It is a complete inversion of the healthy model.
Exactly, an inversion.
Taking responsibility is what you do because you are a capable, inherently good person. You act out of the overflow of your goodness.
Yes.
But manning up suggests you aren't a capable or good person until you successfully perform the grueling action.
Right.
It forms a psychological foundation built entirely on lack and desperation.
It absolutely does.
And let's explicitly apply this to those mothers. Coach Alpha made a point to mention. The mothers who are carrying the dual load, functioning as both primary nurturers and primary providers.
Yes, the supermoms.
Right. They are constantly, relentlessly bombarded with the societal message that they have to do it all. The modern supermom myth.
It is a heavy burden.
But the subtext of you must do it all is always because right now you are falling short. You are failing someone, you need to be more.
Exactly. The gendered language of man up is merely one specific manifestation of a much broader universal human issue.
Which is?
It is the language of conditional worth. And the true danger, the mechanism that really destroys us, is that over time, we internalize this external language.
We start saying it to ourselves.
Yes. It goes from being a demand shouted by a coach or a boss to becoming our own internal monologue. It becomes the voice in our head.
Which provides the perfect logical transition into the next major concept. Because we have to ask the mechanistic question.
How does it happen?
Right. How do these fleeting cultural phrases, a coach yelling on a muddy field 20 years ago, a passing comment from a stressed parent, a slick commercial on TV, how do they literally become deeply rooted fundamental beliefs about who we are?
Yeah, how do they take hold?
How do they hijack the factory setting? Here is where the deep dive moves from culture and philosophy straight into the hard biological reality.
This is where it gets really fascinating.
We have to talk about neuroscience, neuroplasticity, and the powerful illusion of what we call the familiar.
This is where Coach Alpha's synthesis of ancient wisdom and modern science becomes incredibly sharp and undeniable.
I love how he bridges those two worlds.
He really does. He points out that modern neuroscience reveals a fundamental truth about how the brain operates. The brain learns and adapts through repetition.
Okay, so neuroplasticity.
Exactly. This is the core concept of neuroplasticity, famously summarized by the phrase, neurons that fire together wire together.
Right, I've heard that.
Whenever you repeat an action, a thought, or an emotional response, your brain builds and strengthens a neural pathway to make that process more efficient the next time.
Like carving a groove.
Exactly like carving a groove. Whatever is repeated enough times, whether it is a complex physical motion like serving a tennis ball, or a deeply ingrained thought pattern like I am a failure, or I must produce to be loved, begins to feel normal.
Normal, but not necessarily good.
Right. As the myelin sheath around those specific neurons thickens, the signal travels faster. It begins to feel completely natural.
And eventually,
Tragically, it feels like us. It becomes seamlessly woven into our sense of self.
But Coach Alpha highlights a critical, life-altering distinction here. And I want everyone listening to pause and let this sink in.
This is key.
There's a profound difference between what is familiar and what is true. I'll say that again. There's a difference between what is familiar and what is true. We're walking around carrying identities that feel deeply, comfortably familiar, but they are completely objectively false.
It is a staggering realization when you actually confront it. Think about the biological mechanism at play.
Okay.
Just because you have thought a negative, limiting thought about yourself 1,000 times does not magically transmute that thought into an objective fact.
Right. Thinking it doesn't make it real.
It does not make it truth. All it does is make it a well-worn, highly efficient neural pathway.
Wow.
If you are told repeatedly from childhood that your value is entirely tied to your academic or financial output, your brain wires itself to trigger an actual physiological panic response.
It's like flooding your system with cortisol and adrenaline.
Exactly. Flooding your system with stress hormones whenever you aren't producing, that panic feels incredibly real. Your heart rate elevates, your palms sweat.
And because you feel it physically, you believe it.
Because the physical sensation is so real and so familiar, you assume the underlying premise must be the absolute truth of who you are. You conclude, I am just a highly anxious, hyper-driven person who needs to work constantly.
But that isn't the truth.
No, that is not the truth of your original goodness. It is just the biological conditioning.
I want to use an analogy here to really ground this.
Please do.
Imagine you are walking through a massive, dense forest. Let's say you have to get from your cabin on one side to the river on the other.
Okay, I am picturing it.
The very first time you walk through, you are just stumbling around. You take a really crooked, confusing, highly inefficient path.
Right, you don't know the way.
You are dodging thorn bushes, climbing over huge rocks, backtracking. But the next day, because it's the only way you vaguely remember, you take that exact same crooked path.
Right, because it's familiar.
And the next day and the next. After a full year of walking that exact route, you have beaten down the dirt. You have cleared the brush. It is now a clear, wide, undeniable dirt trail.
A neural pathway.
Exactly. You start to think that this crooked, painful path is the only way through the woods simply because it is the most familiar to your feet.
Wow.
You completely ignore the fact that there was always the possibility of a straighter, easier, better path just 20 yards to your left.
That is so true.
But your brain defaults to the crooked dirt trail because it requires the least amount of conscious cognitive energy to traverse.
That is a perfect biological analogy for neuroplasticity. The human brain is, above all else, an energy-conserving organ.
It wants to be efficient.
Yes. It accounts for about 20% of our energy expenditure, despite being a small fraction of our body weight. It loves efficiency. It hates burning extra calories to figure out a new route.
So it sticks to the old dirt trail.
So it heavily relies on these deeply grooved pathways, these familiar cognitive maps, even when those maps consistently lead us to places of intense anxiety, self-doubt, and emotional exhaustion.
It prioritizes efficiency over happiness.
It prioritizes efficiency over happiness. Coach Alpha is warning us that we have mistakenly identified the crooked dirt trail for the absolute unchangeable reality of the entire forest.
We think our trauma responses are our personality.
Exactly.
So I want to challenge you, the listener, right now. Put this into practice. Think about a deeply held negative belief you carry about yourself. Something you say to yourself almost automatically.
Like what?
Like, I am just bad with money. Or, I am not a natural leader. I am inherently unlovable. Or, if I am not perfect, everything falls apart and people will leave me.
Those are powerful scripts.
I want you to interrogate that thought.
Yeah.
Is that belief actually true? Is it a fundamental law of the universe? Or is it just a heavily trafficked neural pathway?
Is it just the dirt trail?
Is it just the crooked dirt trail you've been walking since you were 10 years old? Because it's the only path your environment allowed you to build.
And if we connect this deeply ingrained neurobiology to the bigger picture of our lives, this biological rewiring creates a massive, almost tragic problem when a person actually achieves the goals they set out for.
How so?
Well, we have this societal assumption that external success will act as a cure-all. You would naturally think that achieving your dreams would finally erase the internal feeling of insufficiency.
Right, like once I make $1 million, I will feel secure.
Exactly. But if you have a brain fundamentally wired for insufficiency, if your dirt trail is built on lack external success, cannot automatically rewrite those deeply entrenched neural pathways.
The money doesn't change the brain chemistry.
The brain's architecture doesn't change just because your bank balance does. And this leads us directly into what Coach Alpha profoundly describes as the imposter syndrome of the successful.
Yes, the disconnect. Coach Alpha shares an incredible, haunting anecdote about a man he spoke with.
Oh, this story is powerful.
It is. This man, by every conceivable societal metric, had it all. He had the beautiful, loving family. He had the stunning, sprawling home.
He achieved massive financial success.
Massive. And he enjoyed widespread professional recognition and respect in his industry. If you looked at his life on paper, or if you scroll through his Instagram feed, he had won the game of life.
Total success.
Total success. Yet Coach Alpha reveals that this man lived with a haunting, terrifying, underlying question running on a continuous loop in his head.
What was the question?
The question was, can I sustain this? Can I afford tomorrow?
It is a heartbreaking reality, and it is overwhelmingly common among high achievers.
Why do you think that is?
What we are witnessing there is a massive, painful disconnect between a person's inner identity and their outer experience, because this man's inner identity was originally formed on that dirt trail of lack.
His line was deficiency.
Exactly. Because his core operating system was built on the desperate need to earn his goodness through relentless effort, he physically and psychologically cannot actually receive or enjoy the goodness he has built.
He can't even enjoy it.
A man can be incredibly objectively wealthy, but if his internal identity is built on scarcity, he will perpetually feel uncertain, threatened, and poor.
Wow.
He can build a warm, loving family, but if his internal identity dictates that he is fundamentally flawed or toxic, he will constantly wonder if he truly belongs with them.
Or if he is somehow fooling them.
Exactly. The external success is completely real, but the internal biological conflict makes him feel like a visitor, an imposter in his own life.
A visitor in his own life. What a devastating phrase.
It really is.
And Coach Alpha really zeroes in on how this specifically affects fathers, and again, those mothers carrying the dual load of providing and nurturing. They carry the immense crushing weight of providing, protecting, and leading their households.
It is a huge responsibility.
And because they love their families so deeply, their fear of failing those families runs just as incredibly deep.
Yeah.
The stakes don't just feel high, they feel astronomically, existentially high.
And because the stakes feel that high, that underlying fear becomes the permanent lens through which they view their entire existence.
So they are never at peace.
Never. They aren't actually enjoying the provision they worked so hard to secure. They are terrified of its sudden cessation.
Waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Yes. They aren't resting in the safety and protection they offer their children. They are in a state of hypervigilance, constantly scanning the horizon for the next catastrophic threat.
So the love is there, but it is overshadowed.
The love they feel is profoundly real, but it is heavily tainted, almost poisoned, by the relentless terror of loss.
This is incredibly relatable. You spend your whole life grinding, sacrificing, trying to achieve a specific milestone. You finally get the promotion, or you finally close on the dream house, or you finally have the child you prayed for.
And then what?
And instead of the profound relief, peace, and joy you were promised by society, you are almost instantly consumed by the terror of losing it all.
It is a trap.
The milestone you sought literally becomes a millstone around your neck. The goalpost simply moves again. Now, the goal isn't to acquire the good thing.
No, the goal is to defend it.
Exactly. The goal is to frantically, exhaustingly defend it from an unpredictable world.
Exactly. And this constant anxiety, this unrelenting hypervigilance, it isn't just standard, everyday psychological stress.
What is it then?
It is far deeper than that. Coach Alpha frames this exhaustion as an actual, literal battle taking place within the mind.
A battle.
It is a violent collision of two incompatible realities. And this is where he bridges the modern psychological phenomena back to ancient wisdom in a really elegant, profound way.
Yes, which brings us to the concept of the internal battlefield. Coach Alpha references a very famous concept from ancient scripture, the war in heaven.
Right.
Now, historically, theologians and scholars have interpreted that phrase in all sorts of cosmic, literal, or wildly metaphorical ways. Battles with angels and dragons, that sort of thing.
Very dramatic interpretations.
Right. But Coach Alpha provides this brilliant, grounded synthesis. He connects that phrase with another famous teaching from Jesus, who explicitly said that the kingdom of heaven is within.
This is a true masterclass in reinterpreting ancient spiritual texts for practical, modern psychological application.
It really makes it accessible.
Let's follow the deductive logic here.
Mm-hmm.
If the ancient wisdom states that heaven is located within the human consciousness, then the logical conclusion is that the war in heaven must also be occurring within.
So the battlefield is inside us.
The battlefield is entirely inside us. The brutal war that men and women are fighting, the sheer unexplainable exhaustion they feel every single day when they wake up, isn't primarily an external battle.
It is not just about the traffic or the boss.
No, It isn't just the fluctuating economy or the demanding boss or the impossible scheduling conflicts of modern life. Those are just external triggers. The actual war is an internal collision of two competing identities fighting for dominance over your consciousness.
Two identities going head-to-head in a zero-sum game.
Yes.
Let's break those down because Coach Alpha is very specific about what these two identities are. First, you have the identity formed by fear. It is formed by memory. It is formed entirely by what happened to you in the past. It is built out of the trauma, the humiliating failures, the painful rejections, the times you were told to man up and felt you couldn't.
Right, that is the conditioned identity.
And then
Standing on the other side of the battlefield, you have the identity formed by truth.
the original goodness.
Exactly. It is formed by possibility. It is formed by who you really are at your core. That original goodness, that untouched factory setting, that inherent worth we talked about at the very beginning of this deep dive.
So it is essentially like trying to run two completely competing operating systems on a single computer at the exact same time.
That is a great way to think about it.
Imagine taking a laptop and trying to run Microsoft Windows and Apple's Mac OS simultaneously, using the same processor and the same battery.
It would be a disaster.
What would happen? The processor would immediately overheat, the fans would be screaming, the battery would drain in a matter of minutes, and the whole system would constantly freeze and crash because the fundamental codes are incompatible.
It would just shut down.
No wonder people are walking around feeling completely fundamentally exhausted. We are not just tired from answering emails.
No, the cognitive load is massive.
We are literally burning up all our cognitive and emotional RAM, fighting a relentless war between the false, fear-based identity of our past and the true, possibility-based identity of our original goodness.
That operating system analogy is perfectly precise. The exhaustion you feel at the end of the day is the literal friction between those two incompatible operating systems.
Friction, yes.
Your true identity, the Mac OS in this scenario, representing your original goodness, knows intrinsically that you are capable, that you are worthy, and that you are meant to be at peace.
But the other system is fighting it.
Right. Your conditioned identity, the fear-based Windows system, loaded with the man-up conditioning, the scarcity mindset, the trauma responses, is constantly throwing up system error messages.
Flashing red lights everywhere.
It is flashing warnings. Threat detected. You are not enough. If you relax, you will fail. If you show weakness, you will be abandoned.
It sounds exhausting just talking about it.
And to win this internal war, to successfully shut down that fear-based operating system, we cannot just try to ignore the error messages.
We have to look at the code.
We have to examine the core code it runs on. We have to identify the primary weapon being used against us on this internal battlefield.
And what exactly is that weapon?
It is our own memory.
Our memory, which on the surface sounds entirely counterintuitive.
It does.
We generally think of our memory as just a passive, neutral filing cabinet of historical facts, just a hard drive storing old photos.
Just recalling events.
Right. But Coach Alpha points out that much of our life operates purely on memory,
Yeah.
and we don't even consciously realize it.
We don't realize it because it operates largely in the background as implicit memory.
Implicit memory. Explain that.
Think about your morning routine. You wake up, you swing your legs out of bed, and you walk to the bathroom. You do not have to consciously instruct your nervous system and muscles on how to balance, how to shift your weight, and how to walk.
Right. I don't think about it at all.
You use implicit memory. You brush your teeth using muscle memory. You drive your car to work on familiar roads, and often you arrive without actively remembering the drive itself because your brain outsourced the task to memory.
Oh, I've definitely done that.
Because memory seamlessly guides our behavior, and our behavior subsequently creates our daily lived experience, memory effectively becomes our literal map for navigating reality itself.
Okay, this is a massive paradigm shift.
Yeah.
Memory isn't just a record of the past. It is the active blueprint for the present.
Exactly.
It is the GPS system we are using to drive through today. And Coach Alpha connects this back to ancient spiritual texts once again. He knows how the Holy Spirit is frequently described in Scripture as a force that brings things to remembrance.
Remembrance.
Now, he argues that isn't just a mystical religious platitude. There is a deep, profound psychological mechanism at play there.
Very deep.
What we choose to remember, or what we are conditioned to remember, determines our state of consciousness. And our state of consciousness completely dictates how we see the world, how we feel about ourselves, and how we act in any given moment.
Precisely. The cognitive framing entirely determines the behavioral output.
So if the map is wrong,
If your memory is filled with the trap of bad landmarks, your navigation of the present will be inherently and inevitably flawed.
Bad landmarks.
Coach Alpha argues that if you constantly remember your past failures, your painful rejections, or your deep feelings of inadequacy, you will automatically filter every single future opportunity through that exact same lens.
Oh, man. So you sabotage yourself.
You anticipate rejection from a new partner before you even speak your truth. You will subconsciously self-sabotage a massive career promotion because your internal map says, people like me are bound to fail when the stakes get this high.
That is so sad.
Now, Coach Alpha is very careful and very compassionate to validate that the trauma, the losses, the betrayals you experienced were very real. They hurt. They happened.
We aren't dismissing them.
Not at all. But he makes a vital, liberating distinction. They are experiences you had. They are not your origin.
I really want you listening to sit with that distinction. The bad things that happened to you are not where you came from.
No.
They are not your source code. They are just terrible weather you walked through. But if you make that weather your origin story, you are navigating your life by incredibly bad landmarks.
You are lost.
Think about how disastrous this is in practice. Imagine trying to navigate a brand new, healthy, loving relationship using the exact map of your most toxic, abusive ex-partner.
It would ruin the new relationship.
You are going to take wrong turns everywhere. You will interpret a simple delay in a text message as a massive impending betrayal, simply because your old, outdated map says silence means abandonment is coming.
That is exactly how it plays out.
So I ask you, are you navigating your current present life by the landmarks of your past failures?
It is a tragic, self-replicating loop. Because if you use the map of past failure, you inevitably produce behaviors rooted in defensiveness, suspicion, and fear.
And then what happens?
Those fearful behaviors often end up creating new failures and rejections, which then serve to reinforce and validate the old map.
See, I knew they would leave me.
Exactly. It is a self-fulfilling prophecy entirely orchestrated by the unexamined use of memory.
So the ultimate question of this entire deep dive becomes, if our map is currently drawn by painful memories and cultural conditioning, how do we redraw it?
How do we fix the GPS?
Exactly. How do we bypass the fear-based operating system and access that original goodness?
And this brings us to the turning point. This is where we pivot from dissecting the anatomy of the problem to uncovering the actual practical solution.
The Coach Alpha framework.
Yes. Coach Alpha quotes scripture again, speaking of the famous directive to be transformed through the renewing of the mind.
Right, renewing the mind.
But he clarifies this concept in a way that completely blew my mind. The traditional self-help industry tells us that renewing the mind means becoming a completely new, optimized version of yourself.
Like version 2.0.
Right. But Coach Alpha says that renewing the mind is not about becoming someone else at all. It is not about acquiring shiny new traits.
What is it then?
It is simply about remembering who you really are.
Remembering.
Right.
Wow. Yes, it is an archaeological dig, not a brand new construction project.
Exactly.
You are not building a skyscraper. You are clearing away the dense dirt of cultural conditioning, the debris of past trauma, and the false narratives of manning up to finally uncover the pristine foundation of goodness that was always there, untouched.
The factory setting.
Factory setting. Coach Alpha contrasts this practice of remembering with the questions modern society constantly trains us to ask. From the time we are in school, we are taught to ask outcome-oriented external questions.
Like, what should I major in?
Right. What should I do with my life? Or how do I become financially successful? Or how do I act so that people will respect me?
Very external.
Coach Alpha argues that the much deeper, truly transformative question is not about doing, but about being. Who do I desire to be?
Who do I desire to be? That changes the focus completely.
Right. Do I desire to be the husband who loves with deep presence rather than checking his phone at the dinner table?
Yes.
Do I desire to be the leader who remains remarkably calm and steady in a corporate storm rather than panicking and blaming the team?
A grounded presence.
Do I desire to be the mother who trusts her own inherent instincts rather than seeking constant validation from parenting blogs?
Beautiful.
But wait, let me pause and push back here, because we are hitting a bit of a philosophical paradox. I want to wrestle with this.
Okay, let's wrestle.
If we are already fundamentally good from the beginning, if we are the untouched, perfect vintage Mustang, complete in our factory setting, isn't the very desire to become something greater or to grow a contradiction of that goodness?
Oh, that is a great question.
Doesn't the very act of desiring growth imply that we are currently lacking something?
That is a brilliant, essential philosophical question, and if we don't resolve it, the whole framework collapses.
Right. So how does Coach Alpha resolve it?
His resolution to this paradox is truly elegant. He argues that the desire to become, the desire to grow, is not evidence of a lack within you.
It's not.
No, it is actually the profound evidence of your true nature.
How so?
To understand this, think of an acorn.
An acorn. Okay.
An acorn is perfectly whole, perfectly complete, and fundamentally good as an acorn. It lacks absolutely nothing in its acornness.
Right. It's a perfect acorn.
But inherently coded into the DNA of that perfectly whole acorn is the intense desire, the biological imperative, and the potential to become a massive, sprawling oak tree.
Wow.
The movement toward expansion, the reach toward the sun, the desire for greater life, that is not an enemy. It is not a sign that the acorn is broken or deficient.
It's just doing what it was made to do.
Exactly. It is the natural, inevitable expression of its inherent goodness.
Oh, that is absolutely beautiful. The desire to grow isn't a symptom of deficiency at all. It is the pulse of life itself.
Yes.
It is the original goodness seeking a larger canvas to paint on. It is the oak tree insisting on escaping the shell.
Exactly. And Coach Alpha connects this concept of expansive growth to another profound spiritual text. He references Jesus stating, "I have overcome the world."
Okay, overcome the world.
Coach Alpha suggests a highly psychological interpretation of this. The world, in this context, isn't necessarily referring to physical circumstances, bad weather, or difficult people.
What does it mean then?
The world represents every external limitation, every toxic cultural script like man up, every fear-based memory, and every societal expectation that is actively trying to convince you that you cannot be what you already carry within.
So overcoming the world means...
Overcoming the world means overcoming the pervasive illusion of lack. It means breaking the shell of the acorn.
It is the conscious decision to turn off the fear-based operating system.
Yeah.
It is choosing the truth over the familiar. And having laid out all this incredible sweeping philosophy and the deep neurobiology behind it, Coach Alpha does not just leave us hanging in the theoretical clouds.
No, he is very practical.
He lands the plane right on the runway. He provides a highly practical exercise to move this from intellect to actual lived reality. This is where we learn how to actually practice this concept of remembrance.
And we can frame this using Coach Alpha's Uber model of transformation.
The Uber model? I love this. Break it down.
Think about ordering an Uber. Step 1. You have to order the destination. You define clearly what outcome is desired.
Right. You don't just say, take me anywhere.
Exactly. Step 2. You monitor the journey. You observe your thoughts, emotions, and behaviors as the trip unfolds. And step 3. You observe the results. You measure the changes in your confidence, your emotional regulation, your performance.
So transformation should be observable and measurable.
Yes. And he is quick to emphasize that while this is a conceptually simple practice, simple does not mean easy, and it certainly does not mean weak.
It takes work.
It is a highly potent cognitive intervention designed to exploit neuroplasticity. He asks the listener to do something radical, something that completely interrupts the default mode network of the brain.
Step 1 of the Uber model, defining the destination.
Exactly. For just a few moments, intentionally stop remembering your problems.
Stop remembering them.
Start remembering your perceived limitations. Stop remembering what went wrong yesterday, what your parents did to you decades ago, or what your boss criticized you for this morning. Consciously pause the old, faulty map.
And instead, actively remember the person you desire to be. And I want us to actually walk through this exercise right now with you, the listener.
Let's do it.
If you are listening to this and it is safe to do so, obviously do not close your eyes if you're operating a vehicle, but just take a deep, grounding breath.
Just breathe.
Give yourself permission to stop remembering your stress just for the next 10 seconds. Now, intentionally bring to mind the ideal, truest version of yourself, the person you deeply desire to be, the oak tree within the acorn,
The original goodness.
the calm, decisive leader, the infinitely present parent, the confident, unshakable creator. I don't just want you to think about it. I want you to feel it now.
Yes, feel it.
How would that exact version of you sit in your chair right now? How would their shoulders sit? How would they breathe? How would they speak to their spouse tonight? How would they walk into that intimidating meeting tomorrow morning?
Allow yourself to fully experience the somatic, physical reality of that identity. Feel the tension leave your jaw. Feel your muscles relax. Feel your posture naturally shift into alignment.
You are monitoring the journey now.
Yes. Coach Alpha is asking you to show up for yourself in the present moment, even if you can only hold that frequency for 5 or 10 seconds before the old map tries to take over again.
Because the brain will try to revert.
It will, because, and this is the incredible neuroscience payoff, your autonomic nervous system does not know the difference between a vividly imagined emotionally charged experience and a physical reality happening in the external world.
Oh, that is amazing.
Your brain responds chemically to what is repeatedly experienced in the mind. By deliberately rehearsing this desired identity, you are actively firing new neurons.
Carving a new path.
You are intentionally carving a new, straighter, clearer path through the forest.
You are literally practicing neuroplasticity in real time. You're building the new map, and Coach Alpha makes a clarifying point here that I think is utterly vital.
Very important point.
He says, this is not pretending. Because I know there are highly analytical people listening who hear this exercise and immediately think, oh, come on, this is just fake it till you make it.
Right. It's toxic positivity.
It's self-delusion.
Yeah.
But it is fundamentally different. Fake it till you make it implies that you are a fraud, empty inside, desperately trying to trick the outside world into believing a lie until the lie becomes real.
Which is based on lack.
Yes. Coach Alpha says this exercise is practicing remembrance.
Yeah.
You aren't faking something new and alien. You are remembering something ancient and true. You are remembering your original goodness. You are just dusting off the vintage Mustang, pulling off the tarp, and taking it for a spin.
That distinction is paramount to making this work. You are aligning your conscious daily experience with your fundamental underlying truth. You are practicing the feeling of who you already are at your core.
And observing the results.
Yes, step 3 of the Uber model. And what feels awkward and completely unfamiliar at first, simply because you are so neurologically accustomed to the crooked dirt trail of anxiety and lack, will eventually, through repetition, become natural.
The myelin sheath thickens.
The myelin sheath will thicken around this new pathway, and what currently feels impossible to sustain will eventually become your actual default lived identity.
Is the ultimate cognitive intervention, profoundly grounded in both ancient truth and modern biology.
Yeah.
You are literally thinking and feeling your way back to your factory setting.
And Coach Alpha often reminds us of this brilliant principle. He says, the text informs, but the spirit transforms.
The spirit transforms.
Meaning, knowing the information about neuroplasticity is great, but actively practicing the spiritual remembrance is what actually changes your life.
Which brings us to the culmination of this incredible journey today. Let's take a moment to recap the massive territory we have unpacked, because it is deep and it requires integration.
A lot of ground covered.
We started with this radical, entirely countercultural idea of original goodness. The foundational truth that your value was established and sealed before you ever earned a dime, received a degree, or made a single devastating mistake.
From there, we explored how our culture, through subtle but toxic traps like the phrase man up, and our own brains, through the energy-conserving mechanisms of repeated neural pathways, build these complex false identities of deficiency.
The dirt trails.
The dirt trails. We unpacked the danger of mistaking what is merely familiar for what is objectively true. We realized that the bone-deep exhaustion we feel every day is actually an internal war.
The two operating systems clashing.
Yes, a clash of operating systems, fueled by our own unexamined memories acting as a faulty GPS map.
And finally, we learned that the way out of the maze isn't to hustle harder, to buy more aftermarket parts, or to beat ourselves up.
Not at all.
The way out is to actively rehearse and remember our true nature, intentionally rewiring our brains through the power of our inherent acorn-like desire to grow.
And using that Uber model to make it real.
Coach Alpha leaves his audience with a truly beautiful, haunting takeaway, especially thinking about his original target audience of fathers and those dual-role mothers holding their families together.
What does he tell them?
He says that the father, or the mother, or the CEO, or the community leader that a family or a team needs most isn't a perfect one.
Because perfection is a myth?
Perfection is a sterile myth born of the deficiency mindset. The person your family desperately needs most is the one who remembers who they are.
Wow.
Because when you truly remember your original goodness, you can lead, you can love, and you can build from a place of unshakable wholeness rather than a place of frantic lack.
That is the ultimate ripple effect. When you operate from a place of wholeness, you inadvertently give everyone around you the unspoken permission to do the exact same thing.
It sets them free.
You stop demanding that your spouse, your employees, or your children validate your worth because you already possess your worth. It removes the pressure from them.
It heals the whole ecosystem.
This practice heals not just the individual mind, but it regulates the nervous system of the entire family or organizational system.
It changes everything. It is profound. So as we bring this deep dive to a close, I want to leave you with a final provocative thought to mull over as you go about the rest of your day.
Something to really sit with.
We have talked extensively about how your memory acts as a literal map, quietly guiding your daily behaviors, your emotional reactions, and your perception of reality.
Right.
And you now know, both scientifically and spiritually, that you're not a victim to that old map. You have the neurobiological power to consciously choose the landmarks you navigate by.
You hold the pen.
You do not have to use the landmarks of your past trauma, your worst failures, or your deepest fears anymore. You have the right to navigate by the brilliant landmarks of your original goodness.
Beautiful.
So if your memory is truly just a map, and you now possess the power to consciously redraw it, what is the very next destination you're going to chart the moment you take your headphones off?
Thank you for joining me on Deep Dive with Alpha. Remember, transformation doesn't begin when your circumstances change. It begins the moment you see yourself differently. Carry one insight from today's conversation into your day, practice it, live it, let it become part of who you are. Until next time, keep renewing your mind, keep awakening your identity, and keep becoming the person your future is waiting to meet. I'll see you in the next deep dive.